Have you ever noticed how, after 60, the body starts whispering in ways it never used to? Those small signals, waking up at night to urinate, a slower stream, a pressure in the lower abdomen, or that quiet worry that something might be wrong down there. Have you ever wondered why so many men your age silently deal with prostate issues, yet rarely talk about them, as if discomfort, urgency, or pain was somehow a private shame rather than a sign of neglect? I've asked myself these questions many times, not just as a doctor, but as a man who has sat across from hundreds of others. Fathers, teachers, workers, soldiers, all brave in every way but afraid to talk about their own health. The truth is, after 60, the prostate becomes a quiet battlefield inside the male body. Not an enemy, but a warning signal. A small gland with a big message: take care of me, or I will remind you that you didn't. I remember one patient vividly, Mr. Rashid, 64, retired engineer. He came into my clinic looking uncomfortable but trying to smile through it. "Doctor," he said, "I wake up 3 or 4 times at night to urinate. I don't sleep well. I feel tired during the day. My wife says I've become irritable, but I'm not in pain, so I thought maybe it's just age." I smiled gently. "It's not just age, Rashid. It's your prostate trying to talk to you." We did some tests, an ultrasound and a PSA blood check. The results showed what I expected: an enlarged prostate, a common condition called benign prostatic hyperplasia, or BPH. Not cancer, thank God, but a signal, a sign that his lifestyle, his habits, and the years of quiet neglect were catching up. That night, after he left, I sat with my own thoughts. How many men in their 60s suffer silently, thinking it's normal to feel uncomfortable, to wake up tired, to live with constant trips to the bathroom? How many never realize that simple daily habits, small, consistent actions, could have prevented or eased so much of that discomfort? Over the years, I've learned that medicine can only do so much if lifestyle doesn't change. Pills and procedures can help, but the real power lies in daily discipline. The quiet, consistent choices that protect a man's body long before it breaks down. I remember telling Rashid, "You don't have to fight your prostate, you just have to support it." And so I began to explain to him, not with complex medical terms, but with stories and simple habits that any man can follow. The first was movement. I told him, "Your prostate doesn't like stillness. When you sit for hours, in front of the TV, on the sofa, in the car, blood flow to the pelvis decreases. The veins get congested, and that congestion leads to swelling and inflammation. But when you move, when you walk, stretch, or do light exercises, you help your prostate breathe." He laughed. "So walking is medicine too?" I smiled. "The most underrated one. Even 20 minutes a day improves circulation, reduces inflammation, and balances your hormones. The body was designed to move. That's how it cleans itself." 2 months later, he came back. "Doctor," he said proudly, "I've started walking every evening after dinner. I sleep better. I don't wake up as much." Movement had begun to heal him, not just his prostate, but his whole life. The second habit I taught him was hydration, not just drinking water, but drinking it wisely. Many men, fearing frequent urination, reduce their water intake. They think avoiding fluids will help. It does the opposite. When you drink too little, the urine becomes concentrated, irritating the bladder and the prostate, causing inflammation. I told Rashid, drink enough, but smartly. Hydrate throughout the day and stop 2 hours before bed. Let your bladder rest at night. He nodded, surprised at how simple it sounded. Sometimes healing isn't complicated, it's just consistent. But the third habit was the one that truly surprised him. I said, "What you eat decides how your prostate feels." I told him about lycopene, a natural antioxidant found in tomatoes, especially cooked ones. A bowl of tomato soup, a bit of olive oil, or some grilled tomatoes a few times a week. It's like giving your prostate armor. I said, "Lycopene reduces oxidative stress and may even slow prostate cell overgrowth. Then there's zinc, found in pumpkin seeds, lentils, and seafood, crucial for prostate health and testosterone balance. Your prostate holds more zinc than almost any organ in your body," I explained. "But with age, levels drop, so you must feed it back, and of course the fats, the good ones. Omega-3s from fish, flax seeds, walnuts. They calm inflammation like cool water on fire. Inflammation is silent, but it's the fuel for every disease that grows quietly inside." Rashid started small. Tomato soup twice a week, a handful of pumpkin seeds every evening, a spoon of olive oil on his salad. He wasn't perfect, but he was consistent. Then came the fourth habit, emotional control. I told him something many men never hear from their doctors. Your prostate listens to your mind. Chronic stress elevates adrenaline and cortisol, which tighten the muscles around the bladder and prostate, worsening symptoms. The body and mind are not separate. They are one conversation. When you live in tension, your organs tense with you. I remember telling him, "You've spent years fixing machines, solving problems, worrying for your family. But now you must learn to let go. Your body is asking you to rest. He smiled sadly. Doctor, it's not easy. My mind keeps running. It's okay, I said. Start with 5 minutes. Sit quietly. Breathe deeply. Stretch. Think of it as maintenance. The same way you serviced your car, you're servicing your body. Over time, Rashid began meditating. He'd never used that word before, but he did it in his own way. He'd sit quietly on the balcony at sunset, breathing slowly, letting the noise of the day fade away, and slowly his nights got better. The fifth and final habit I shared with him was one that men avoid: regular checkups. I told him, don't wait for pain to listen to your body. The prostate is small but silent. You won't know it's in trouble until it's serious. A simple PSA test, an ultrasound, a digital exam, they're not signs of weakness, they're signs of wisdom. He nodded quietly. I was afraid, he admitted. Afraid of what you might find. I said, fear doesn't prevent disease. Awareness does. When he left that day, I saw something change in his eyes. Not fear, but ownership. He wasn't helpless anymore. He had a plan, a path, a way forward. Months passed. Rashid kept coming for follow-ups, but more than his reports, it was his spirit that impressed me. His face looked calmer. His energy had returned. He'd lost a few pounds. Doctor, he said once, I used to dread nights. Now I sleep peacefully. I still get up once, but it doesn't bother me anymore. I feel normal again. And that's what men want, really. Not perfection, not immortality, just normalcy. To live without discomfort, without shame, without fear. As I watched him leave, I realized that every man over 60 carries the same potential. To heal, to restore, to age gracefully. If only he listens. The prostate isn't a punishment. It's a reminder. To move, to eat mindfully, to hydrate, to breathe, to check in with oneself. I began sharing these same lessons with every patient who came after him. Some resisted at first, too busy, too proud, too skeptical. But those who followed even halfway began to notice the difference. Fewer trips to the bathroom, better sleep, a lighter feeling in the body. And most importantly, peace of mind. That night, I thought of something my father once told me. Health is not what you do when you fall sick. It's what you do every day when you're well. And in that truth lies the real medicine. A few months after Rashid's recovery, something remarkable started happening in my practice. Men began coming in not because they were sick, but because they wanted to stay well. They had heard about Rashid's progress, and for the first time, they were curious about prevention, not just treatment. It was rare, almost beautiful, to see older men wanting to take charge of their own health before it slipped away. One of them was Mr. Hamid, 68, tall, graceful, with silver hair and a quiet pride in his voice. Doctor, he said, I've been lucky so far. No major problems, but my friends keep talking about prostate troubles. I don't want to wait for it to happen. Tell me what to do. I smiled. Hamid, you've already taken the hardest step, asking before it's too late. He nodded thoughtfully. I've seen what my older brother went through, sleepless nights, pain, surgery. I don't want that. So I began to explain, not like a doctor talking to a patient, but like one man talking to another about the reality of aging, the parts no one warns you about. I told him that after 60, the prostate naturally enlarges in most men because of hormonal shifts, specifically a rise in dihydrotestosterone DHT, a byproduct of testosterone. This process can't be stopped completely, but it can be slowed, even reversed with the right habits. He listened closely, and I saw a seriousness in his eyes that reminded me of Rashid. I told him, your body is like an old machine that's been reliable for years. But even the best machines need regular oil, cleaning, and care. The prostate is the same. Hamid smiled. Then teach me how to oil the engine, doctor. We laughed, but behind that humour was sincerity. I started with the same 5 habits, but this time I went deeper. Movement, I told him, was more than walking. It was circulation. Every step pumps blood through the pelvis, clearing toxins and reducing congestion. If you sit too long, your pelvic floor tightens, trapping pressure on the prostate, I explained. But when you move, you release it. Hamid told me he'd been a golfer all his life, but had stopped because of back pain. Maybe it's time to start again, he said. I nodded. Not just for your heart, but for your prostate too. He started slow, 15 minutes in the park, then 20. Within a few weeks, he came back glowing. I feel lighter. Doctor, he said. I didn't realize how stiff I'd become. I reminded him that stiffness is not just in the muscles. It's in the arteries, the tissues, the very flow of life inside. Movement brings youth back from the inside out. Then we talked about diet. Doctor, he said, I've heard too many things. One day tomatoes are good. Next day they're not. What should I believe? I told him the truth. That no one food cures or kills, but the pattern of eating every day decides how your body ages. I told him about the Mediterranean diet, rich in vegetables, fish, olive oil, whole grains, and moderate in meat. Studies show that men who follow this pattern have fewer prostate problems. Why? Because it fights inflammation at its root. I said, think of inflammation as rust. Every day, your body oxidizes a little. Antioxidants like lycopene, zinc, selenium, and omega-3s act like oil that slows that rust. He started simple, more greens, fewer fried foods, more tomatoes, less red meat. Over time, even his cholesterol improved. But what really touched me was what he said next. Doctor, eating healthy makes me feel younger, not just physically, but mentally. I feel in control again. And that's something I realized all men crave, control. Not over others, but over their own lives, their own bodies. Aging takes that away piece by piece. But when you start nurturing yourself, even small steps give it back. The third habit, hydration, was one he struggled with. I've been avoiding water because I hate waking up at night, he admitted. I told him gently, you're avoiding the cure out of fear of the symptom. We planned a simple schedule, 2 glasses in the morning, 1 at lunch, 1 mid-afternoon, and stop by 7 p.m. He followed it. Weeks later, he smiled, Doctor, I feel cleaner inside, my urine doesn't burn, and I sleep better. I didn't realize dehydration was adding to my discomfort. And it's true. Dehydration thickens the urine, irritates the bladder, and makes the prostate swell more easily. It's such a small thing, yet it changes everything. Then came stress. This, I believe, is the silent destroyer of men's health after 60. The body may slow with age, but the mind doesn't. Most men continue worrying about finances, children, legacy, loss. But they never let that worry out. It stays inside, tightening every nerve, every vessel, even the prostate. I remember once telling Hamid, do you ever talk to your friends about how you feel? He laughed. We talk about cricket and politics, not feelings. I smiled. Maybe that's the problem. He grew quiet, and I could tell those words landed somewhere deep. The next time he came, he said, Doctor, I've started going for walks with my old college friends. We talk honestly now about our health, our fears, everything. It feels lighter. That's when I saw what medicine often misses, that healing isn't just about biology, it's about connection. Men don't just need treatment, they need permission to care for themselves, to feel, to express, to rest. Over the years, I've met many men who come to me only when things are bad, when pain forces them to. They come frightened, ashamed, and regretful. They tell me they thought prostate issues were just part of getting old. And I always tell them, no, it's not age, it's neglect. The body forgives, but only if you start listening. Hamid kept listening. He began meditating before bed, reducing caffeine, and getting regular checkups. When his PSA came back normal, his joy was pure. It feels like I've bought myself more time, he said softly. And I told him, you didn't buy it, you earned it. There's one more story I often think about, one that changed me as a doctor. It was about Mr. Iqbal, 71, who came in late one evening. He was frail, tired, and clearly in pain. His family had convinced him to see me after months of him hiding his discomfort. He had been waking up 10 times a night, straining painfully to pass urine, but he said nothing. When I examined him, I knew immediately it was serious. His prostate was severely enlarged, and his bladder was retaining urine. We had to insert a catheter to relieve him. As we did, he held my hand and said, tears in his eyes, Doctor, I was ashamed to tell anyone. I thought it made me less of a man. Those words broke something inside me. Because in that moment, I realized how deeply culture, pride, and silence harm men more than any disease ever could. After the procedure, his relief was instant. But what stayed with me wasn't the medical part. It was his regret. If I'd come earlier, he whispered, maybe it wouldn't have gone this far. That night, I sat alone in my clinic, the lights dimmed, thinking of all the men like him, men who lived strong, brave lives, but never learned to care for themselves with the same courage. And I promised myself that day that every time a man over 60 walked into my office, I'd do more than treat him. I'd teach him. Because these 5 habits, movement, mindful diet, hydration, calmness, and regular checkups, they are not just routines, they are acts of self-respect. They're a way of saying, I still matter. My health still matters. The prostate may be small, but it teaches a big truth, that prevention is always quieter than cure, but infinitely more powerful. Even now, when I see my older patients smiling, walking comfortably, sleeping peacefully, I feel something deeper than satisfaction. I feel gratitude because it means they listened, they changed, and they reclaimed their dignity. So if you're listening to this, maybe you're 60, maybe 70, and you feel those small signs your body is giving you the hesitation, the discomfort, the interrupted nights, don't ignore them. Don't wait until fear brings you to the doctor. Start now. Take a walk today. Add those tomatoes and pumpkin seeds to your meal. Drink your water with purpose. Sit quietly before bed. Schedule that checkup you've been putting off, because healing doesn't begin with medicine. It begins with awareness. I've spent decades studying the body, but what age has taught me is that healing comes not from big changes, but from small, faithful ones. One walk, one meal, one test, one moment of care. And when you make those small changes daily, your prostate and your whole body begins to trust you again. It relaxes, it breathes, it heals. So, as a doctor, but more importantly as a man who has seen life and loss, I'll say this: protect your prostate not out of fear, but out of respect for the life it allows you to live. Because aging is not the end of vitality, it's the invitation to protect it wisely. And the sooner you begin, the more your body will thank you for listening.